On this episode of the podcast, we talk about mastering editing apps, what apps we use, what we like, what you could do with them. And actually, nobody lets any dogs out this time either. It's Monday, August 14th, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. I'm Greg McMillan, joined by my good friend Dave Podner. Hello, David.
Hi, Greg. How's it going tonight?
It's going pretty good. Just excited to get talking about some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is we're going to continue in our series called The Perfect Picture, and tonight we're going to talk about mastering editing apps. But I just want to mention before we start that if anybody missed it, I was honored to be on This Week in Photo with Frederick Van Johnson, and there's a link in the show notes to the to his blog post on that, which has the YouTube video if you want to watch it, or it's on the podcast app and all that stuff. So it was just a lot of fun talking to Frederick about whether or not the iPhone is ready for professional use. So we had a good chat, a few laughs, and I've been a fan of his for a long time, and it was really good to be invited on and talk about this stuff. So give it a listen if you got an hour of spare time, and it was just a lot of fun to do. So just wanted to get that out there. So continuing on in our series, again, to recap, just for people who may be stumbling upon this, I was playing around with ChatGTP one night and asked at what, how could I learn to do better iPhone photography? And it gave me a whole list of things. And in that list is tonight's subject, which is mastering editing apps. So basically, what ChatGPT did was just give us an outline. So of course, once it gave me the outline, I asked it to expand on each one. So tonight's outline is the expansion on the mastering the editing apps. So what it said to begin with about it was mastering editing apps in iPhone photography can greatly enhance the quality of and artistic appeal of your photos. Here are some steps to help you become more proficient in using editing apps. So, Dave, you want to start with the first one there?
Sure. First one is choose the right editing app. Explore popular editing apps available in the App Store, such as Lightroom Mobile, Snapseed, Photomator, or Darkroom. Each app has its own set of features and interface, so try a few and find the one that suits your editing style and preference. And there is not, at least in my mind, one perfect editing app out there.
Yeah, I agree.
I have seen people use Snapseed and make amazing ones. I have Snapseed. I think we both have like so many editing apps, it's ridiculous on our phone.
Yeah.
But it depends on what I want, what I like. I tend to go to Lightroom Mobile as my fallback app. Mainly because I like the dehaze option. I think it does a great job.
Yeah.
Just makes everything clearer, sharper. Just kind of can fix situations which aren't exactly perfect light.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes can overdo it. Occasionally I use Photomator. I don't use Darkroom, but I think that's primarily a raw editor, if I'm right. Correct?
No, it could do
okay.
JPEGs just as well. And really, there's no separate interface for RAW than there is for JPEG. So
I just shoot in JPEG more often than not. So
yeah.
And Snapseed I'll use occasionally, and I use those are my, I would say, like I said, Lightroom, occasionally Photomator, Snapseed. And of course the built-in Photos app are the ones I use for basic editing. When it comes to more artistic, there's a whole set of other apps I use, but that's really for getting a feel or getting a artistic bend, if you will, to a photo.
and we'll cover that in a couple
Yeah,
of
that
points here for
yep,
sure.
yeah.
But yeah, like you said, some people use Snapseed, and it's such a powerful editing app for the iPhone. It's just ridiculous. And funny enough, I used to say up until about just a few days ago that I had to wonder what the future of Snapseed going to be. But believe it or not, it just got an update
Oh,
in on the
I was
iOS
just
side.
I was just about to check that because I know it's been 6 days ago.
Yeah, prior to that, it was well over a year, maybe
It
two
was a
years.
long time. There was a month ago with minor fixes, but the year before that, it was a year before that,
Okay,
and it was like dark theme and support for iPad Mid 6th Gen. But
yeah,
yeah,
but it's nice
then
to see that it
it's
finally
like
got some
once a
attention.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, because so many people use it, and I was really concerned about, maybe Google was going to drop it on the iOS side because it was getting regular updates on the Android side.
Yeah.
And understandably so. I mean, Google owns it, so they're going to look after their own. But nice to see that it got the update. And I've been thinking lately of maybe giving Lightroom Mobile a better shake than I have been. I've been using Darkroom for most of my editing, and now I subscribe to Darkroom. It costs me like $25 a year or something like that. But
Hmm.
that gives me
That's
the
not horrible.
masking.
That's not
Yeah,
too
yeah,
bad
that's not
then.
horrible. It gives me the masking and features like that. It's a lot cheaper than Lightroom because Lightroom Mobile is something like $7 or $8 a month, I think, for the cheapest plan or something like that. Like and to do raw editing and the masking and things like that in Lightroom Mobile, you need that. You have to pay for that. But um, I've been thinking about giving Lightroom Mobile a try as my more like my daily driver for editing, just to see, you know, if it's going to be something that I would want to maybe subscribe to. Um, I'll see. I thought I might try it for a month and see how it goes. But I do use these other apps for other things. Like there's Photomator. There's so many different ones. We've only listed four of them here, really, and we're going to have links in the show notes for as many of these apps as I can remember to put in.
Mhm.
So
Well,
if
like I
you,
said, there are so many out there.
oh
It
yeah,
really is amazing, all the different ones. Um, I'll even occasionally use Camera Plus too.
yeah, it has an editor too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to see the apps that I use, funny enough, Frederick Van Johnson asked me, you know, what apps do you use? And I'm the wrong guy to ask that question to because I have so many. So when he found out how many I had on my phone, he says, "Oh, you got to screenshot those and send them to me." So now they are on that blog post on the This Week in Photo website. So if you want to see my arsenal, you'll notice that some of them have a little cloud on it with a down arrow. That's because I have my phone set to offload any apps that I haven't used
Hmm.
in a while. But all I got to do is hit that little cloud or hit the icon and it'll re-download almost instantly or whatever. Um, and but I have a lot. I have a ton, and my argument for having them is that because we do this show, sometimes things come up that we want to talk about, and
Hmm.
and I'll have to have a little bit of experience on it. Like, if I know ahead of time we're going to talk about a certain app, and if it's in my app drawer, I'll call it. Um, if it's not downloaded, I'll download it and I'll try a few things with it. So to kind of refresh my memory on it. But there's things like, you know, um, lens distortions, there's dramatic black and white. Some of these apps
Hmm.
have very specific purposes, and that's there's so many out there, just so many. And I think it was the last show we talked about the Photos app and the editing suite in the Photos app. And I still think we could do a whole show on
Yeah.
that part of Photos, um, just because it's pretty powerful, and there's a lot of different um, adjustables or adjustments that you can make. So we'll do that sometime in the future. But for this one, it's about editing apps in general and all the different ones.
Mm-hmm.
So the next point is understanding the editing tools, which is kind of what we just kind of discussed a little bit here. But it says here, familiarize yourself with the various editing tools and options provided by the app. Learn about the basic adjustments like exposure, contrast, saturation, highlight, shadows, and white balance. Additionally, explore more advanced tools like curves, selective adjustments, and noise reduction. So some of the apps have these functions in them and others don't. Like, the Photos app, it doesn't have curves, but it does have noise reduction. It does not do selective adjustments. That selective adjustments is something that maybe, Snapseed has it, it's included in Snapseed. So there you go.
Yeah.
And, so there's, not all these things that are listed here are in everything, but just get to know them. Kind of play around with them and see what they do. I've always said, take the slider and move it one end to the other and see how it changes the image, and then find, the sweet spot that suits your liking. And one thing I learned about the Photos app is I took a course that Jack Hollingsworth did with Moment, and it's called Intentional Photography. And it's a really, really cool thing to watch. It's I forget how many parts to it there were, but it's like a guy named John Gill from the UK. He did the filming, and so he followed Jack around Cape Cod where they did this, and it's just like being there with Jack. It was so well done. So Jack will talk about whatever the subject is that he's looking at, whether it's portraits or whatever. But when he got to the editing part, Jack does a very fast edit on his images. He doesn't take much time to do it, like 5-10 seconds, done, move on to the next one. But one thing I learned about the brightness slider in Photos is that it just really adjusts the midtones of the image. So that's an interesting thing to me, and I'm paying attention to the other apps that I use to see if they kind of behave in the same way or not with the brightness slider in them. But when you're using these things, just kind of watch what they do to the image and pay attention to what they do. Like the whites, so Darkroom has a whites slider, and it has the blacks, and then it has the highlights and shadows, and then it has the brightness. So I'm assuming the brightness there was the midtones again. But what I like about having the whites and the black slider is it gives you much finer control over the contrast of the image. Like, especially, if you want to bring up the highlights without affecting, the not so high highlights, then that white slider is really good at that. So just play around with these things and get to know them and see what they do. Even read up on them if you have to, but.
Yeah, and there's tons of videos out there and tutorials, and the best apps have links to tutorials.
Yeah,
that they actually produce, so they can give you a little help either in app or to like a YouTube link or something on that nature on the website, so you get a little familiar with it. Because, like you said, it's the easiest way to learn is to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing is, well, I would say this, for some of the apps like Lightroom Mobile, you can, when you open it up in Lightroom Mobile and then save it, it saves a copy.
Right.
Snapseed, you can either overwrite or save as a copy.
Mm-hmm.
Things like Photomator does not allow you to save as a copy as easily. But if you save as a copy, you have if you, let's say you edit a photo and you're like, you know what? I don't like the way it turned out. You have your original photo you can start from.
Yeah.
Plus, all the edits are non-destructive on iOS.
Yeah.
So you can always go in and hit the reset button. Well, you'll lose a lot. So if you're doing multiple steps edit, I would save. If you're like, okay, I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now, I'll save a copy here. Okay, let's see what else I can do. Okay, I didn't like the last step. Good, I don't have to save it. I have like a halfway save. I'll go from there.
Yeah, yeah.
That way you won't
And
pull your hair out trying to start over from scratch.
yeah. And you can even duplicate it before you even start.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which helps too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the next step is Dave. Go ahead.
And this is learn to use presets or filters. Many editing apps do have presets or filters that can instantly transform the look and feel of your photos. Experiment with different presets to see which ones you like for your desired aesthetic. Also, you can adjust the intensity of the preset or to customize the effect. And one thing it does not mention here is that you can set up your own presets.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do particular, and this is something when I was more heavily to use Polar,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would have like, oh, well, I like the way, and I would call and this is one thing I don't like. A lot of these presets, they're non-destructive names. They're either, TC43.
Yeah.
Which is,
yeah.
well, I don't know, right?
Yeah. What the heck is that?
Yeah. Or they'll have things like, Tokyo, Denver. Like,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
I don't. So when I made my own filters, I did things like downtown, sunny buildings. So it's like, okay, it's sunny. I'm taking pictures of buildings. I'll use that filter and see how at least I can use it as a start with.
Yeah.
And then if I don't like the way it turns out, I can tweak it, but I'm at least 90%. So I'm not recreating the steps every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
not every app does that, but the ones that
no.
do, it's it's a nice feature.
This also where if it doesn't do it, like the built-in Photos app doesn't, a lot of the apps will allow you to copy the edit and paste the edit. So if you took multiple photos in a very similar lighting and color saturation situation, once you get that one edit down, you can copy and paste that edit on the multiple photos. So it saves you a lot of time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's a big help. And you can do that with the built-in app now. Ever since iOS 16, you can do that as a big help.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing to have.
Now, one thing I do want to kind of skip ahead a little bit here. Sorry, Greg. At the very end, it says, remember, editing should enhance your photos, not completely transform them.
Oh, yeah. This is from the summary. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where I'm going to get on my soapbox. You do whatever you want with the images. Now, there are times that I will take an image and I do just want to tweak it a little bit here and there, So you can say, oh, you brightened the colors. You made it a little more, you dealt with a sunny sky, which kind of washed them things out, or you did this and you adjusted for this, or you can, you look at the before and after, edit. You're like, okay, I see what you did and it looks good. You just made some edits to freshen it up. And sometimes I go crazy. And if you want to go crazy, go crazy. If you do want to use, like, I have 3 or 4 apps that I use when I want to do, I even have a special filters, even though they're not really filters, a special filters bit here. Where 3 of them that I use a lot are Visionist, Brushstroke, and Art Card.
Yeah.
So I will sometimes use all 3. So I'll do some basic edits in Lightroom Mobile, and I'll throw it in like Visionist or Brushstroke, which Brushstrokes makes it literally look like a painting. So you have to be a little careful because sometimes you can overdo the water and it literally looks like a watercolor, which you lose a lot of definition and, color. And Art Card are just filters of, and it's one of these ones where it makes it a little bit, sometimes it's a little hard to know what they're talking about. With things like oil painting, mosaic, snow town. They don't give you previews down below.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to hit them, and you can change the intensity and make some adjustments on it if you want. And after using those filters, I'll still throw it back into Lightroom Mobile to tweak the contrast a little bit,
Hmm.
or tweak the saturation, or to do a little cropping or something on that nature. The other app that I'll sometimes use, and this is one we've talked about in the past, is Photoshop Camera.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That's the one that you go, okay, you know what? I don't like that sky.
yeah,
I have a new sky now.
yeah,
And if you do it well, it's hard to know that you did that.
yeah. You fooled me a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah.
A few times on that one.
Yeah. So, but don't limit yourself to one app either.
No, oh no, for sure.
Sometimes, like I said, if you look at the one of my later ones that I posted to Instagram that I called Nordic Lake in Winter at Night or something else question mark. Okay. And I can tell you it's not a Nordic lake at night in
Yeah,
winter, but you look at the photo and it is a photo. It isn't a drawing. It is a
mm,
photo.
yeah,
To me, it screamed. You almost get a feeling like you should be coming up on Vikings
yeah,
camping out for the winter.
yeah,
And that's something, if you want to go wild with your creation, go for it.
yeah, yeah. Like it says to learn to use presets or filters,
Yeah.
and um, that when Dave and I were texting a little bit today about about the show here, and he said that he wanted to talk a little bit about this, get on his soapbox, like he said, and I said, hey, I agree with everything you're saying,
Yeah.
because I said we need to convey the message that editing is an art form in and of itself,
Mm-hmm.
and it certainly is. I mean, people like Mary Walker,
Yeah.
oh, her name escapes me now. Uh, iPhoneography C, I think, is her Instagram handle.
Okay.
Nikki Fitzgerald, sorry, that's it. Sorry, Nikki.
Okay.
These ladies do amazing. And Dwight Broman, he's another one out of California. He's another one that does digital. They do this wonderful digital art, and maybe they do it on their iPad because it's a little easier to work with, but
Little
it could be
bigger.
done
Yeah.
on the iPhone too. They make these wonderful creative masterpieces and they may use stuff from two or three different photos. Um, you know, they may just use like brushes and use their finger or an Apple Pencil to put different types of things together in it. But it's not just enhancing a photo. It's actually creating a complete piece of art from it, and the stuff they make is incredible. And I wish I had the creative sense to do something like that myself, but I just don't have it now. Honestly, I haven't really
Mm,
tried it too much, but
right.
I just don't have. I look at them and I think all these different layers and all these different things that they put in. I thought, how the heck do they come up with this stuff? But hey, learn to use these things. And another thing about filters is raw power calls it LUTs. So it's like lookup
Mm,
table. And, you could put film sims in, like an app like RNI Films. You could put all these film sims on your images. It would make it look like an old Kodachrome shot or an
mm-hmm.
old Fuji Realis shot and all this stuff. Excuse me. There's all kinds of different apps with film sims in them. And, I think Snapseed has a bunch of different filters, and um, gosh, the possibilities seem to be endless when
Yeah.
the more we get dug into this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's pretty good, and I think you're right, Dave. Is don't hold yourself back.
Yeah.
Just go nuts, because like one of my favorite images that you've done, Dave, is that blue caddy. I love that thing, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's what you did. You did it with these. I forget what app you said you
That was
used.
Photo Room. That was Photo Room.
Photo Room. Okay,
Photo Room,
yeah. So
which is a great app for um uh getting only on your subject.
yeah,
because
For
it does a
isolating it.
great, it does a great job with isolating your subject. And you can do things like it has the built-in filter, so you can, literally like old-fashioned Photoshop. Oh, I'm going to put this person in a magazine, or
Yeah, yeah,
that. But it also has like, oh, I want to make the background color match the foreground, but make it blurry.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's what
yeah,
I did on that particular one
yeah.
with the
Because
caddy. That has
everything
that
looks
bluish tone, that
yeah,
bluish
the
green
same
tone.
tone of blue.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing. It's really good. So yeah, I mean, don't hold back on your
Yep.
creativity for sure. So next we have crop and straighten. This is pretty straightforward. Using the cropping tool to remove any unwanted elements or distractions from your photos. Additionally, make use of the straightening tool to correct any tilted horizons or lines in your images. And if anybody knows me, they're going to call me the horizon police, because I really prefer a nice straight horizon, unless you've tilted it to more than say 30 degrees or something for artistic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just off a little bit, then to me it's just you didn't hold the camera straight, and
Which
before you.
happens,
Sure, it does. I mean, I've done
but
it.
that's why we can fix it easy.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's such a simple, fast thing to do, to fix before you post anywhere, or print or whatever, and just straighten it a little bit. Just about any app that I know of has a straightening tool in it, and uh, and then there's, along with the crop and straighten, there's some apps. Photos is one of them, that you can fix the basically the skew of, like, the
Mm-hmm.
horizontal skew or the vertical skew. So if you have like a building, and it's not skewed too much from the wide angle, you can actually straighten it up a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and make it look a little
Yeah.
better that way. But
Yeah. The one hint I would say with that is make sure you give enough buffer around your subject.
yes, when
Because
you
when
take
you
the shot, yeah.
because when you undo the skew, it will crop it, and then all of a sudden you lose image, because when it straightens, you just chop, 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 chop. And you're like, I just lost the top of my building, or
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So you may have
yeah.
to zoom out a little bit more than you're used to, if you think you
Hmm.
may have a situation like that, or take two
Yeah.
photos.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just play around with it, and then
Yeah.
see what it does. It's a really great tool to use. So next we have retouching and healing, Dave.
Yep. And learn to use the retouching tools to remove blemishes, objects, or distractions from your photos. Cloning tools are really good. They take a little bit of practice, in my mind, compared to the healing brushes. Can be useful for this purpose. Now, the one I use more than anything else is Touch Retouch.
Yeah, it's one of the best out there.
Yeah, yeah, and it just I know you can pay for more in terms of like mobile and other things, but it is a standalone app, but it does an amazing job.
Yeah,
It does have built-in object removal, so you're like, oh, I want to remove this post, and it does a good job. It's not a miracle worker. It does a good job. It will also get rid of lines.
yeah, like
So
hydro
if
lines
you
or something.
exactly, and it also has a mesh option.
Hmm.
So that one's still a little, I haven't gotten to work as well, but think about like trying to do a shot through a fence, where it will try to get rid of the entire fence,
Hmm.
because it's
Yeah.
it's a repeated pattern.
Right. Yeah.
And of course you can always undo. So you're like, I was trying to take away the car in front of the building, but I don't like what it did to the bricks. Okay, no problem. Just undo it. No problem at all. And you can either use it as the standalone app or as an extension inside the Photos app.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So that's a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Now, I'll also
Fo-
say that, I'm sorry.
I
One
was just
thing
going to say,
about,
Photomator has a nice healing tool in it too,
yeah.
that works pretty much the same way as Touch
Mhm.
Retouch. But
If you're trying to do retouching and healing of skin, like in a selfie, um, Polar does have some really good options where you can smooth out the skin without it looking bad.
oh yeah,
There's, oh, our skin smoothing app, and you look at it, you're like, that don't look like you,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
that looks fake, or you can tell that doesn't. No, it does a good job, and it lets you do. Does it let you do some weird things? Like, oh, I want my eyes to be closer together or further apart. It will
oh
do
yeah,
that.
oh really?
Yeah. Or, oh, I want my smile to be bigger. It'll actually curve your smile up. Or I want my nose to be narrower, wider, or, weird things like that. But it can do the basic, hey, I don't like the way that my skin looks. I'm looking kind of splotchy, or it looks kind of red because of the sun. It'll work on your tone, smooth it out, so you can make it look enhanced but not fake.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's standalone apps that will do very similar things too.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you've heard that phrase. There's an app for that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna go along
That
with
is
just about
true.
every
Yeah,
point we cover tonight.
very true.
So yeah, so retouching and healing, they've made it so easy to do, and I in the Photos app on the Mac in the editing part, there's so many more things available than there is on the iPhone. And the healing brush is one of them. And I kind of wish they would port that over to the iOS side and put the healing brush in the Photos app
Yeah.
on the phone. Um, it would
Well,
be a
we'll
nice
we'll
addition.
also say that they probably would have added it. We would have seen it for iOS 17, but a lot of these software additions are things they can hide. Because the heart, like they could say, oh, in addition to what we talked about earlier at WWDC, iOS 17 includes blah.
Oh yeah.
And then because it's only coding, they can limit on who sees it as the big splash
Oh yeah. I see.
versus
Yeah.
hardware where, you need to have tens of millions of units ready to go first day of sale.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I haven't seen like I'm on the iOS 17 beta, and
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of
A lot of changes.
changes in the editing parts.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things in there, but I can't even recall what they are offhand. But
Yeah.
like I think one of them is auto cropping, which is
Hmm.
there's the crop where if you zoom in on a photo and then all of a sudden a little crop button comes up in the top right corner, you can hit that and basically it makes like a wallpaper.
Hmm.
But there's also, I believe there is a feature where you can select a bunch of images and hit auto crop or whatever, and it'll use AI and all that stuff to crop all these
Hmm.
images. But more about that in the future. I think when we know more
Yeah.
about, and like I say, I haven't really played around with that too much at all, so I can't really say anything with authority on it. So next we have selective editing. Many editing apps provide selective editing tools that allow you to apply adjustments or enhancements to specific areas of the image. Master these tools to selectively enhance exposure, color, or other attributes of your photo. So as I mentioned earlier, Snapseed has that, which is
Mm-hmm.
really probably the the best one for free. I don't know of many other apps, any other, to be honest with you, that have that feature available for free. Snapseed, you can select an area and use it, to just brighten up a certain area or
Mm-hmm.
saturate it or whatever. Um, like I said earlier, I have Darkroom. I pay for the subscription where I have uh, masking, so I can mask an area in the image, and I can select the foreground or the background, or I can do a radial selection or a mask, or
Mm-hmm.
a gradient mask, but it's not as good as Lightroom. I've seen what guys are doing with Lightroom in their masking, and the masking in Lightroom is so much more better. It's more powerful.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's Adobe. They've got who knows how many people working on it. Darkroom, it's a smaller team. I'm not sure how many guys are actually working on the coding and that, but I'll guarantee you it's not as many as Lightroom. But it's still pretty good. Like it'll even pick a subject. How well, I'm not 100% sure, but I haven't played with the subject part of it, but I have played with, a couple of the other different masks in it, and it's pretty cool to be able to do that. But again, Snapseed, if you have
Mhm.
it, and if you haven't tried some of these local adjustments in Snapseed, give them a try on some of your images and see what they do. They really can help out.
Mhm.
So next is experiment with presets and
Yep.
customization,
Yep.
Dave.
And explore various editing styles and techniques by experimenting with different adjustments and combinations. Use slider adjustment tool to fine tune the look and feel of your photos. Don't be afraid to experiment and develop your own editing style. This is similar. We kind of went over a lot of this idea
Yeah,
kind
we did.
of a little bit earlier. So basically, it's a matter of if you don't be afraid. Most people will have a style,
Hmm.
or
Yeah,
multiple styles. It's like, okay, if you see someone's photo, you're like, okay, I recognize your photo. I recognize the edits you normally do because that's what you like.
hmm.
And if you want to have if you want to use a program where you can set up, a customization, it's like, okay, that photo, I hit the button here because I already did the work multiple times with experimenting over the time to see what I like. Boom, and you can just do it in one go. And then maybe if you have to do a little tweaking of the photo after the
Yeah,
fact.
yeah, yeah. And one keyword that's in that little description is combinations. So
Mhm.
you talked about it earlier. Is you'll use different apps on the same image, and if you come up with a combination of these different apps with their adjustments, you could come up with a certain look or style. To
Mhm.
it's kind of the long way of putting a preset together, because you obviously can't use adjustments from different apps to make a preset. You have to go from one to the other and then,
Right.
back and forth. But, get experiment with them. That's the first word of this section is experiment with these presets and customizations. Play around with them. That's basically how I learned to do anything on this stuff, is playing around with it. I said, like I said earlier, adjust these sliders from one end to the other and see what they do, and just go from there. So next we've got learn from tutorials and online resources. We touched on this too earlier. It says take advantage of tutorials, articles, and YouTube videos available online to learn
Mhm.
advanced editing techniques and tips. Many apps have official websites or community forums where you can find tutorials and examples of editing workflows. It's almost like I just repeated what you said earlier, Dave.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, YouTube is a haven for uh, online stuff, tutorials. There's always somebody doing something and showing how it's done and all this stuff. Um, right on our website, on the iPhoneography.ca website, the podcast site, there's a section it's called Learn. And if you click on that, it takes you to a page that describes Mike James smartphone photography training. Um, and it's now a club where if you pay for a membership, I don't want to say subscription because some people, they want to back away from that word, but it's like a membership. And he's got everything that he's put together on there, all these different things you can learn, not not just about editing, but shooting and accessories and whatever else he's done. Like he's done such an amazing job at put this stuff together that this page on the website will take you to his smartphone photography club, and it's a great place to learn too. If you can't find what you're looking for, that's good enough on YouTube, because YouTube, there are some developers like Raw Power, they have a YouTube page, Darkroom has
Mhm.
a YouTube page, things like that. But if these places aren't really showing you what you want, check out Mike's website and see if there might be something there. Um, Another way that I learn stuff personally is I watch photographers on YouTube who are not mobile photographers, but you know DSLR pros, and quite often they'll talk about editing their images. And some of those things can be translated over to the mobile side in the apps that we use. One of them in particular is Adam Gibbs from out in BC here in Canada. Uh, when he does an edit to help boost the contrast, he uses the whites and the blacks, and that's where I got that from. And I've been doing that in darkroom, and I've noticed how much better it works when using those sliders as opposed to just the contrast or the highlights and shadows. It's just a finer adjustment that helps tweak it that little bit that makes a difference. Is there anybody online that you've seen, Dave, like on YouTube or anything that comes to mind that's been really helpful?
Honestly, the biggest one I've seen is Shane Weston.
Yes, definitely.
Just because, especially with the night photos.
Yeah.
And he goes into really good detail step by step, so it's easy to follow what he's doing.
Yeah, and he shows it on screen too, and that's good.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, now Shane is his channel is all about shooting in the dark, right? It's all about night photography because he lives in a place where it is so
it can get dark enough where he is. Yes.
And I mean, the only thing that would hold him back would be cloud cover. And he's got some amazing images up there with the Milky Way, but then he lights up his foreground with a torch or like an LED light of some sort. Some of his stuff is just so amazing, and it makes me want to go try it, but I don't have that kind of stuff here. It's fairly dark here, but I'd have to go on somebody's property, I think, to find something interesting to do that with, and it's just not as easy. But yeah, I mean, there's a perfect example of a good place to learn stuff, and even in the Facebook groups that I've been in, people ask, how do you do this? How do you do that? Anytime somebody says anything about shooting the Milky Way or night photography, everybody will point them to Shane's channel. Yeah. And of course, there's a link in the show notes to his channel. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. And it's another great place to learn.
And this is one part I'm jealous of, both where you and Shane live, because I am not anywhere near where I can get dark. And one time we had Shane on, we looked at the maps, and he was like, "Oh, wow, yeah, you really are. Ooh, yeah, ooh." I said, for me to reach what Greg is naturally would take me a good half hour, 45-minute drive away.
Mm-hmm.
and there's literally, for me to get where Shane is, I think it's a good 2 to 3 maybe hour drive south of where I am, somewhere in West Virginia.
Yeah. I could get out into the country where it's fairly dark, but I have yet to been able to find something really interesting for foreground. Right. I mean, I could use my car, I guess, but Shane uses heavy equipment or tractors or old trucks, and those things are pretty cool. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe if I put enough effort in it, I'll find something. But so look online. There's always something there.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. So next is compare before and after. Mm-hmm. So always compare your edited photo with the original to ensure you're achieving the desired effect without overdoing it. This will affect you to maintain a balanced and natural looking result. So a couple of points I want to make here. One is, like Dave said earlier, would you save it out as a copy, so you always have your original to go back to, or you could duplicate it to begin with and then work on the duplicate, but then bang, you can always compare the two and see how you like it. The other thing is in some of these apps, if you just touch and hold the screen for a second, it'll show you the original, and then when you let go, it goes back to what you've done with the edit. But the other thing I wanted to mention is it says, without overdoing it, and this will help you maintain a balanced and natural looking result. Well, with Dave's soapbox speech earlier, don't limit yourself to that. If that's what you want to do, fine. That's fine. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. Just do a natural looking result, but don't limit yourself to that. Go
Mhm.
crazy with it. Do what you want. Make some art. And I mean, am I right, Dave?
Oh,
That's
yeah. Yeah. And I would say also with the before and after, it can be interesting if you post, because we all know that Instagram's going towards reels.
mhm.
I know some people don't like TikTok, but TikTok can be used for photography also. But you can't, they do have it either in CapCut or in TikTok or other things where you can do transitions between photos.
Yes.
So if you save the intermediate steps, you can actually do original photo and then a slow transition to getting to the end point.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And that way you can not only say, well, like I did a recent video where it was like, well, here's the original unedited. Here's the first step, the second step, the third. And so you can see as it changes a little bit each step along the way in the apps I used.
yeah, yeah. And that was interesting. I saw that. I think it was
Yeah.
earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's definitely some merit to
Yeah.
looking at the before and after, and you know, again, saving out as you go is
Mm-hmm.
a sure, it takes up a little bit of storage, but I mean, when you finally get to your end result, if you're really happy with it, you can always delete the intermediates if you want,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Unless you want to use them for, like you say, putting a video together.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, there's definitely some merit to checking the progress and seeing how it changes the aesthetic of the image.
Mm-hmm.
And finally is
Yep.
practice and experiment, Dave.
Yep. The key to mastering editing apps and really anything photography is practice. So, edit a variety of photos taken in different lighting conditions, experiment with different styles and techniques to develop your own unique editing approach. Like we said, you can't really, at least in my mind, you can't really say this step A is this, step B is this, step C is this. It's here are your options available.
Yeah.
Everyone's just like with camera apps, everyone's familiar or comfortable with different edits. Or, it's like, oh, I found out that I like the way that, Camera Plus 2 or the way that Photomator works with a photo that kind of looks like this. But if a photo looks like this, I like the way Lightroom works on it.
Hmm. Yeah.
But again, the only way you can try that is to try it. And there are times that I will say, there's a photo. Let me try this app. Okay. I'm trying the app. 5-10 minutes go by. I try different presets. I try different filters, different adjustments, and I'm still not getting what I want. So I go, well, that's a learning experience. Let me try another app.
Yeah.
So then I try that. I'm like, okay. Now this one turned out the way I wanted it to, or at least it gets me in the right direction. And I know that there's other apps I can use. So practice. And of course, in the beginning, you're going to use a lot more, you're going to take a lot more practice time than you will later on because you have to experiment and learn on your own what you want to use for the look you want.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, and like I said, that's how I learned how to do all these apps and stuff is just play around with them,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the number one tip that we mentioned tonight was make a copy,
Yeah.
like a duplicate to work with. That way, if it gets totally botched, then you could just get rid of it,
Mm-hmm.
make another duplicate, and go start again. But always, always, always make a duplicate. I think that's the best thing to do. So just so you don't lose your original image, because once you've messed it up, and if you happen to use an app that has no history where you can go back through it and start over again,
Mm.
well, then you kind of sunk. But um
Unfortunately.
yeah, so to summary, Dave covered this earlier. It says, remember that editing should enhance your photos, not completely transform them. Well, we say poo poo on that. But to finish the summary, it says, by following these steps and dedicating time and practice to experiment, you can become proficient in using editing apps for iPhone photography and take your images to the next level. Now, that part I think we can agree with.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah. So, well, final thoughts on editing, Dave?
Go wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, and this is the great advantage of where we're at right now, is that most of these apps there's free versions for a lot of them.
Hmm.
Like your Lightroom Mobile, they do have a free version that you don't have to sign up for an Adobe account, even though sometimes it
Yep.
gets a little hard to find that option because they really want you to sign up for that Adobe account and pay
Oh,
money.
yeah.
But that's everyone.
Yeah.
Companies don't put out product to put out a product, you got to pay for a programmer. So the money has to come in some way. That's one
Yeah.
thing to think about. But yeah, there's so many different options. Go out and experiment. Try multiple apps on the same photo. If you want to look at a photo and you're like, I kind of like it the way that it's set up in terms of how it could turn out, but you take the photo and you're like, it's not really what I wanted.
Hmm.
Go out on the edit and see what you can do. Heck, I
Yeah.
mean, you can even start at an image that looks one way, throw some edits at here, do some edits here, do some edits here. There's some photos I took that all of a sudden after doing a little editing, a little playing with I thought, you know what, it would look good if it was vintage look.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like a sepia or a black and white. It just works better there. I do that. Throw it in. Like I said, I love the frames in Camera Plus 2
Hmm.
and some of their edits. So I'll throw it in there. I'll put like an old timey frame on it. Snapseed got some frames. I know that's old Instagram from 15 years ago feel
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
but sometimes it just makes it work.
Yeah.
Especially for me, a lot of times, if you're doing like an old fashioned photo, because that's what they look like back in the 70s
Hmm.
with the
Yeah.
little triangles on the side.
Yeah.
Kids, I
Oh, yeah.
guess, ask your parents or grandparents if you're younger.
Yeah.
But yeah, pull out an old photo book and you can see how they have the photos in there, you
Yeah.
know.
It gives us a bit of skeuomorphism.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
I think,
like I said, try it. And if you don't like it, undo it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the most bang for the buck in editing apps is Snapseed. Um, it just has so many things in it that uh, I I always recommend people start there. And if it doesn't do what you want to do, then you could start looking elsewhere. Um, and you know what? Something that people who have known me or listened to me for a few years now may be asking this question: whatever happened to Lumabee? That used to be
Mm,
my go-to editor,
yeah.
and um, it when I got my 12 Pro Max, it seemed to be broken, and I don't think the guys have updated it too much since then. I'll take a quick look on the App Store, but
Yep. You know what? I'm
uh,
opening it up now. 2 years ago.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. They did it as a hobby, I think, right? And I guess it's no wonder that it's kind of maybe fallen behind a little bit because it would be hard to keep up with with the newer phones and things like that
Mm-hmm.
all the time. But I really loved that app. I used that all the time because it was so easy to go through the process. They designed it to go through quickly. And maybe I should reach out to them and ask them if they plan on updating it again, because it was just so much fun to use for me anyway. I mean, I really liked it, and but I mean, hey, it's still in the App Store, so
Yeah.
I'm just looking for there's this version history. Yeah, 2 years ago. The last update said Lumabee has troubles saving burst photos as new, so we decided to disable that option. See, that's part of the thing where it's coming up with keeping up with things and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, so but they did fix at that time. They fixed this thing to do with a visual glitch after presets panel was shown. But I don't know. Maybe I'll download it again. I haven't tried it on my 14 Pro Max, but I know it. it gave me issues on the 12 Pro Max. It just didn't seem to work very well. But I'll re-download it. I'm doing that right now, and I'll play around with it maybe tonight and see. And because I do miss it, I miss it. It
Oh yeah.
was a wonderful app to use, I thought, and so we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, well, I guess that's it for editing. Again, we are going to at some point in time cover the editing suite in Photos, because I think it's pretty powerful, and there could be a lot a lot can be said about the different things in there. So on that note, Dave, let's tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. You can find me in most places in social media as Prof Pod, and on TikTok as Prof Pod PGH. On Facebook is Dave Podner Jr.
All righty. You can find me on, well, I always say the quickest and easiest way is to go to about.me/McMillan, and that's where all my links are for my online presence and all that stuff. So the links are in the show notes for our main social feeds and stuff. So give us a look there. And the next show is going to be what, Dave?
Next show is, and sorry, closed the file I had open. It is using accessories.
Right.
Such as lens attachments, tripod stabilizers, remote shutter releases.
Yeah. So, there's a pretty good marketplace for stuff like that. So we'll see if we can dig up what we can about that. And I'm sure we can think of things where the people can learn about. If anything, they can learn what they maybe want or what they don't want. But anyway, so that should be a fun one. And okay, well, thanks, Dave. It's been a pleasure as always, and we'll talk to you next time. I also want to say, our 100th episode is coming up, and now normally when we record that, it would be our last part of this series on improving your iPhone photography. We're going to defer that type of show for another we're going to bump it back another 2 weeks or whatever. We record every 2 weeks, and we have some special things lined up for the 100th episode. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait. That's all I'm going to say about that. But Dave knows what we're doing. So anyway, all right. So again, thanks, Dave. We'll see you all on the next one.